Hello everybody, my name is Dratnos, and in today's video we have a Shaman raid buff, something that Blizzard has indicated they weren't going to do for a long time, but now they are going to do it because they figured out it was something they had to do, so hooray! Let's start, I guess, just by reading it. Greetings, Shamans! Earlier today, we unfortunately deployed a small part of our Shaman update to the beta. This may have put the class into a bad state for testing, but that'll only be the case for the next day or so. We have significant updates to the Shaman talent trees coming in tomorrow's new beta build. First, we'd like to outline our philosophy and goals for these changes. We'll start by addressing the new Shaman raid buff, Sky Fury, and then go over each of the tree updates individually. So Sky Fury says, throughout Dragonflight and the War Within development, the topic of raid buffs has been actively discussed, and we've come to the decision to add a new raid buff to the Shaman class. Our goal with this buff is for it to fully replace Wind Fury Totem, and grant Ellie and Resto access to a raid buff to encourage their value in raids. Sky Fury incorporates the previous effect Wind Fury Totem had of activating additional auto-attack swings with a small mastery buff. Players may note this is lifting the party-wide restriction previously in place on Wind Fury Totem's effect and turning it into a guaranteed raid-wide effect. So let's read what it does. Sky Fury says, harness the fury of the Wind Lord to grant target ally 2% mastery and empower their auto-attacks to have a 20% chance to instantly strike again for 1 hour. If the target is in your party or raid, all affected party and raid members will be affected. All affected party and raid members will be affected. Learned at level 17. Okay, so this is a big deal. This means that there is now one guaranteed Shaman spot in any serious mythic raid kind of composition. This is a powerful effect. It's the enhancement brought Wind Fury Totem, which would affect themselves and 4 other people. Now Sky Fury gets to affect the Shaman, the best melee DPS, but also the melee DPS that don't benefit as much from Wind Fury will now get it because it's raid wide. In particular, this is really big for some tanks too. Like Prot Warrior, for instance, gets a lot of defensive and offensive benefit from having Wind Fury Totem, but often can't make it into the Wind Fury group because you've got DPS that want it more, that are getting more value. So this is really nice, basically, if you wanted Wind Fury, but if you were the 6th best Wind Fury target in your raid or whatever, and so you didn't get to be in the Wind Fury group, now you get it. That's going to be nice. The other thing that this does is it gives 2% mastery. Now, mastery is very rarely given out in percent from effects like this. It's almost always given out in rating because for some specs, the amount of mastery that gets you 1% rating is a lot, and for some specs, it's a little. I found this page on Warcraft Wiki, which I don't know if it's still accurate. This is the rating per percent, and I think this might be outdated by some amount of expansions at this point, but I think the ratios are still correct, which basically say that, like, Guardian Druid, Resto Druid, Shadow Priest, right? You need a bunch of rating to get 1% on these effects. Whereas you can see down here for Mistweaver, for instance, Gust of Mist's mastery effect this is almost 10 times less rating needed per percent for them. And same with like Resto Shaman, Athlock. These are, you can get the percent very quickly from low amounts of rating. So what that effectively means is that these specs are going to benefit a great deal more from 2% more mastery because that's way more effective rating that they're being given. As compared to, say, these specs, which are only being given a small amount of rating in terms of how much mastery they're getting. But I think Blizzard did it this way because if they made the effect give flat mastery, then that would run into the mastery diminishing return system. This is a little bit of a nerdy tangent, but that's something that they do have a problem with whenever they want to make a mastery buff. Like if you ever go into Algathar Academy, if you talk to one of the buffs that aren't mastery, you get percent, and so that doesn't actually interfere with your stat diminishing returns. Which happens, late in an expansion for a lot of stats. But for mastery, you get flat rating instead of percent, so it actually does interfere with the diminishing returns, and I think they didn't want this buff to behave that way. But what that does mean is the value is going to be different for different specs by quite a bit. It's not just, do I like mastery, right? Like, you think about it like, oh, it's a crit buff. Do I like crit? If so, I like this buff more, right? But mastery is a little bit different because it's 2% mastery. So this could be like, for some specs, it's like, oh, that's 1,000 mastery, and for some specs, that's like, oh, that's 200 mastery. So that is... It's not really relevant because you're just going to bring a Shaman anyways. For M+, maybe. I've been trying to think about if this is like a super important thing for M+. I don't think it really is. It'll definitely be nicer to have a Shaman now. Like, your Shaman is bringing a group-wide DPS buff, but I don't think that this is going to be... I don't think that this is, it's not as powerful as stuff like Chaos Brand, and it doesn't have defensive effects like Mark of the Wild or Powered Fortitude or Augmentation Evoker or Devotion Aura, those sorts of effects. So I don't think this is going to be like one of the premium raid buffs, but it is nice because it affects everybody. Unlike effects like Battle Shout, Mystic Touch, that are more niche in terms of who they affect. This one does affect everybody, so this will be definitely big stonks for Shaman and M+ as well. For Raid, I mean, yeah, there's now a one Shaman requirement in Raid. So the question is, are you going to bring Elemental, Enhancement, or Resto Shaman to fill that spot? Of course, you could bring more than one Shaman, but the second Shaman isn't bringing the raid buff, right? So the second Shaman is one you'd be bringing in those like 16, 17, 18, 19, 20 slots, the remaining ones that are free from needing to be a raid buff, right? Which can happen if the specs are tuned well. My suspicion is that Elemental is going to be the most common source of Sky Fury, because Resto Shaman is competing for, when you think about raids, usually you have 4 healers. It's very rare that 2 of them aren't a priest and a paladin. So you've got 2 remaining spots left over. Resto Shaman is one of 7 specs competing for those 2 slots now. I think that is probably less likely to be where you'll usually see the Shaman brought than, say, one of your range DPS and Ellie Shaman, which fits pretty nicely. Especially some of the updates in here also make me think that Ellie Shaman is going to be more well-suited towards, typical difficult encounters than it usually has been. So my early money would be, obviously balancing tier to tier is going to be the big factor for this, but if we looked at the next 10 tiers, my guess is that like 6 of them are going to have an Ellie Shaman, 2 of them are going to have an Enhanced Shaman, and 2 of them are going to have a Resto Shaman. Something like that would be my early guess based on just kind of the fundamentals here. Okay, so anyways, Ellie, they're making the spec have more consistent proc rate between AoE and single target, allowing for things such as Lava Burst to have more of an impact on the rotation, improve talent tree layout to allow for more diverse builds and variety. They want them to be able to be lightning, lava, or weaving between. Resto, they want to condense the availability of damage-focused nodes to free up more points on healing profiles. Yeah, this is always a weird part about Resto Shaman. You go into the spec tree and it's like, okay, I gotta take Stormbringer, I gotta take like Lava Surge or something in my spec tree. If I want that, I gotta take Acid Rain if I want that. And so you're looking at a healer spec tree and it's like, okay, I've got to take all these damage nodes, or maybe if I really need this healing thing, like maybe I'm supposed to start dropping them, but they're such good nodes for how much DPS they bring. So that was there weren't a lot of other healer trees that looked like that. We've also focused on increasing the effectiveness of a few core Resto Shaman spells. Healing Surge and Spirit Link Totem. In Healing Surge case, more bonuses to the spell to allow players who are looking to utilize the spell more effectively. And for Link, we're returning Spouting Spirit's Azurite trait with a twist of Splash Healing to make it strong in any group content. Healing Rain is also seeing new bonuses focused on increasing its effectiveness. And then for Enhance, we've generally been quite pleased with the state and talent diversity of their spec tree, so we're approaching it with a lighter touch. We focused on baselining a few of their core spells and utility within their spec tree to allow for more optionality in both the core and spec trees. Now, Enhanced Shamans, as far as I can tell, are not particularly happy with this turn of events. I do think it is true that the current Enhanced build is fun. It's fun to play. But the set bonus is going away, obviously the current one. And it always just sucks to see everybody else getting a lot of updates and cool new toys and stuff, and you don't. So I do empathize with Enhance there. I will agree that, of the 39 specs in the game at the, like, say, Season 3 of Dragonflight, Season 4 of Dragonflight, Enhance is definitely, like, top 5 in terms of how well put together the core build feels. So I think that is... I think it's fair. I wish they'd done at least a little bit more than they're doing here, though, which we'll see in a sec. First, let's take a look at the class tree. So they've moved a bunch of stuff. There's Sky Fury. There's a new talent that lets you get Fire, Frost, and Nature damage reduction when you get healed by Healing Stream Totem or Cloudburst Totem, which is, this is not something that's going to be super reliable or useful. The Cloudburst Totem is the only one that you can reliably put on multiple people, and it's a 3% DR. And Healing Stream Totem, I mean, it's, you'll get a little bit of value out of this in spots where you're using it, but it's not, this is not something that really you ever need to think about. You'll just talent it, and it'll maybe get you some, a couple of effective healing here and there. All right, up next we have a new talent, Refreshing Waters. Your Healing Surge is more effective on yourself. A new one, this is a big one. Thunderstorm can be cast on allies within 40 yards, reducing enemies' movement speed by 60% and knocks enemies 25% further. Anybody who played with Shining Force back in like BFA Legion will remember Disc Priests and stuff with this just blasting you away and stuff. So That's cool. New talent, Seasoned Winds. Interrupting a spell with Wind Shear decreases your damage taken from that school by 15%, stacking up to 2 times for 18 seconds. Now, this is, powerful. This is a lot of DR, but it is clunky as hell to activate this. You could think of maybe some super high key thing where you're like, okay, let's bring a Firecaster into the fire boss so that our shaman can kick it and live the fire, nuke that the boss does or whatever. I think that's pretty unlikely to be something that actually happens, but this is potentially a decent amount of value. I don't know. I think it's probably too situational to ever actually plan to get good value out of it. New talent, Encasing Cold. Frost Shock snares its targets by an additional 10%, and its duration is increased by 2 seconds. Another new one that makes enemies within 10 yards of Frost Shock snared. Cooldown of Windrush Totem is reduced, and its effect lasts longer. The effects of your weapon imbues are increased by 20%. That one's just obviously good value. A new talent as well, Stone Bulwark Totem, which makes a Absorb Shield that you get for 10 seconds, and it refreshes, I guess, every 5 seconds, or maybe it adds on to it. Potentially quite a strong little effect here, depending on what the numbers are. Jetstream, Windrush Totem's movement speed bonus is increased by 10% and now removes snares. This can potentially be quite big. You can think of spots like Halls of Infusion. The dragons do a big cast called Deep Chill that puts a nasty dot on everybody. But the dot is intrinsically also a snare. So if you remove the snare, you remove the dot. So Windrush Totem this way would be you drop it and clear the dot from everybody. Pretty potentially good value in a couple of niche spots like that. Another new talent, Primordial Bond. While you have an elemental active, your damage taken is reduced by 5%. I think this used to be an Ellie thing. Now it's just, I guess, a Shaman thing. Nice little bit of extra value. The thing is, like, if you may already be using Earth Ellie as a defensive, so this doesn't really add a defensive because, it's not like I guess it sort of adds a defensive component to offensive elementals, but Voodoo Master's been redesigned. Your Hex target is slowed by 6 seconds after it ends as well and reduces its cooldown. Powerful. A powerful slow. Powerful slows are, they're still pretty niche in PvE generally. Like you're usually there's not too much you're gonna want this for. Flurry has been moved to the Enhanced tree. Gust of Wind has been reduced to 20 from 30 seconds. A couple of talents no longer share choice nodes. A bunch of stuff is now 1 point, and a bunch of stuff has been removed, including Stoneskin Totem. Yeah, a bunch of other stuff. Undulation can now trigger Call of the Ancestors for Farseer Resto Shamans, and healing from Chain Heal from Totemic Rebound when it bounces off your totem has been increased by 400% as well. So a couple of nice Resto Shaman hero talent effects. All right, we've got Ellie Shaman changes now. So this is the spec that is getting the most new stuff of the Shaman specs. Fusion of Elements says, after casting Ice Fury, the next time you cast a Nature and a Fire spell, you additionally cast an Elemental Blast at your target at 60% effectiveness. This is pretty sweet. This is a pretty sweet effect. Ice Fury is getting changed as well. Let's skip ahead to that so that we can analyze this a little bit better and then come back. So Ice Fury has been redesigned. Casting Lava Burst has a chance to replace your next Frost Shock with Ice Fury, stacking up to 2 times, but Ice Fury only empowers the next 2 Frost Shocks with 4. Now, by the time this video comes out, I think the beta build will actually be up and this will be testable. It's really important that Ice Fury is instant cast if they want it to work this way, because otherwise what it's going to do is you're going to proc an Ice Fury, and then you're going to go and press your movement global button, your Frost Shock, and it's not going to be pressable because you procced Ice Fury. And if you're doing that while you're trying to move, that's going to be a disaster. Obviously, you could use Spirit Walker's Grace to let you cast it, but then what's the point? Ice Fury is supposed to let you move. So I think this change is good, reduces button bloat, but Ice Fury needs to be instant cast when it replaces an instant cast button, because replacing an instant cast button with a cast time button, I think would be a big mistake. But yeah, so then you're going to be doing your thing. Your Ice Fury thing is going to light up, and it's like, oh, cool. Now I can press Ice Fury and a couple of Frost Shocks, move for a little while. And also, now I set up this cool little side quest if I take Fusion of Elements, where now I want to make sure I cast a Nature and a Fire spell to get some free extra Elemental Blast, which you probably will. Storm Frenzy says your Chain Lightning or Lightning Bolt has 40% reduced cast time after casting Earth Shock, Blast, or Earthquake, and you can get up to 2 charges of this as well. So it's not 80% reduced cast time. You could get 2 40% reduced cast times, which is better because an 80% reduced cast time reduces it well below your GCD, so you're not actually getting extra value out of it usually. Elemental Unity, while Storm Ellie is active, your nature damage is increased. While Fire Ellie is active, your fire damage is increased. Lightning Conduit, while Lightning Shield's active, your nature damage dealt is increased by 8%. I mean, these are just no-brainer, big throughput talents. Everlasting Elements increases the duration of your elementals by 20%. Thunderstrike Ward, imbue your shield. So this is a shield imbue. So there's another shield imbue as well, I think in the totemic tree. So both Resto and Ellie, I think, are going to generally prefer to be on one-hander and shield so that they can use these. Obviously, you don't have to talent this. You don't even have to talent the thing in the totemic tree, I don't think, either. But I do think that that's going to be kind of the default shaman. Usually you'd rather have access to the shield rather than, say, a staff. So you get 1 hour of Lightning Bolt and Chain Lightning, have a chance to call down 2 Thunderstrikes for some damage. Earthen Rage, your damage spells incite the earth around you to come to your aid, repeatedly dealing nature damage to your most recently attacked target. So as long as you're casting, you're basically getting free extra single target out of this. It's obviously very much a single target effect. Echo of Elementals, when your elemental expires, you get a lesser Ellie for 15 seconds. First Ascendant, cooldown reduction on Ascendance. Haste is increased when Ascendance is active as duration's increased. So a couple of cooldown-oriented talents that we've seen here and here as well might make Ellie a bit more bursty and a little bit less sustained damage focused. Furious Storms, activating Stormkeeper summons a powerful lightning elemental for 8 seconds. Primordial Fury has been redesigned. Now it increases the crit damage bonus of Elemental Fury by 25%. Ice Fury, as we said, has been redesigned. Mastery has also been redesigned. So Mastery now increases all physical and elemental damage dealt. The damage of overloads is now 25% of normal damage, was 85%. So they're moving Mastery into a way more consistent damage profile rather than being focused on whether you're A, casting something that can benefit from being overloaded, and B, whether you proc that overload. Those are now not important variables. I think this is a really good change because historically Elemental has suffered from some spells not benefiting from overload and also from Mastery being a stat that sort of increased your resource gen through extra Maelstrom from extra overload procs. And in some iterations of the spec, that has been worth very little. And so, especially on certain target counts, that's been worth very little. So now I think this is going to be a lot better. They've just turned it into a flat damage increase for basically all of your damage, which means there's no longer some spells that benefit more than others. And overload procking is still nice for extra Maelstrom, but it is, a lot less extra damage. And I think they've nerfed all the Maelstrom of the overloads as well by quite a lot. Lava Surge and Inundate are now baseline. The trigger rate of Lava Surge and Searing Flames now scale based on the number of targets Flame Shock is on. In single target, it should trigger slightly more often. In AoE, it should trigger less often. This is a very good change that I think they make this to a lot of different spells over the years. They've done a few of these, and I think it's been good every time. Basically, the idea is, sometimes you can have these effects. You can think about it like Soul Shard Generation off of Agony, Soul Shard Generation off of Inferno for Destro, Shadowward Pain and Vampiric Touch, Insanity Gen, Bears getting Rage Gen off of their Thrash, bleeds and stuff. All of these effects, you often get this sort of thing where it's like, okay, on single target, it feels pretty bad. On 2 or 3 targets and 4 targets, it's feeling great. And on like 5+ targets, I'm overwhelmed. And I've just got 70 zillion resources or procs or whatever. And so I think that changing this to be a lot more like logarithmic makes a lot more sense. And I think this will be a lot better. Hopefully this means now on single target, you can be getting more lava, slightly more often. Hopefully it's not just slightly, hopefully it's not like 10% slightly. Hopefully it's like 50% more often. But then in big AoE, it's like, 200% less often than you'd get if you had 5 flame surges or flame shocks out. But yeah, so this is nice. And this fundamentally will help Elemental Shaman be more competitive on single target. Like changing the spec in this direction, it removes a big barrier that was stopping them from balancing it to be good on single target in a lot of previous iterations of the spec. So I think that this is also a very encouraging development for the future of Elemental Shamans in raids. A couple of percent changes to different things, a couple of things becoming 1-pointers. Power of the Maelstrom now triggers 1 additional overload, was 2, but it can stack up to 2 times. Magma Chamber down to 10 stacks from 20. Equilibrium no longer has a tracking debuff. Eye of the Storm now reduces the Maelstrom cost of Earth Shock and Earthquake by 5 and Elemental Blast by 10. Maelstrom has been nerfed. Incoming Maelstrom, you get a lot less Maelstrom from all of the different stuff that's happening. Although, if you're proccing extra Lava Bursts, maybe that'll help a little bit. Although Lava Burst is generating as much Maelstrom as Bolt used to, so, the rotation may slow down a little bit as a result of this. You may be getting less elemental blasts, less earth shocks than before. I think that's probably fine as long as the core of the rotation is still feeling good and you're not just casting, 7 lightning bolts in a row and then an elemental blast and just hating your life. So I think this does make sense to do this, and they've especially targeted the overloads and Ice Fury. Ice Fury has gotten more than half of its Maelstrom taken away. Overloads are being hurt particularly, except for Lava Burst overloads, but Chain Lightning overload nerfed by a bunch. So, yeah. Flow of Power no longer increases Maelstrom gen from overloads. Stormkeeper is no longer a choice node against Lightning Rod. Earthshock is now a choice node against Elemental Blast. Earthquake now has an option to cast on your target instead of at cursor or at reticle. It's really good to just have these options. In theory, at cursor or doing it at the reticle. I mean, in theory, at cursor is going to be the best for this sort of effect. But in practice, sometimes it's nice to give up a little bit of your ceiling to raise your floor, right? Lower your ceiling and raise your floor, which is what having something be done just always at your target will effectively do. And, that'll save you some very valuable brain globals in the heat of combat. All nodes are now 1 point. What a line here. All nodes are now 1 point. I mean, this is the sort of line you could put in any spec tree, and it's like the hair on your skin raises up, or it's like, oh my god, what an exciting spec to be playing in a world where all of its nodes are now 1 point. And they've also cut a bunch of stuff, including Windspeaker's Lava Resurgence as well. So, yeah, there's Ellie. Moving on to Enhance. A lot smaller of a section. Maelstrom Weapon is now learned at 10 and has been removed from Class Tree. Feral Lunge has been removed from the Enhanced Tree and is learned at 14. Flurry has been moved to the Enhanced Tree. Elemental Blast damage has been nerfed, and they've removed some talents, including Wind Fury Totem. So basically, Enhance is going to feel very similar to how it does right now, except your set bonus is gone. Although the new set bonus for Enhance is actually one of the more exciting set bonuses, because you're getting uptime on Feral Spirits, which is something. You're also getting a little bit of talent point flexibility, right? Like the talent point you used to put in Wind Fury Totem is gone. The talent point you used to put in Maelstrom Weapon has been replaced by a talent point being put in Flurry, but that frees up a talent point in the class tree. You're getting Feral Lunge now for free, so that's either saving you a talent or giving you Feral Lunge if you didn't already talent it. So you're getting a little bit of extra sauce out of this, but not much. It is pretty comparable to just existing Enhance. Okay, and then Resto. Resto, we have some new talents here, although a lot of these are old set bonuses, old Azurite traits are being, or old talents even, being brought back in. Very few of these are new. Tidewaters, when you cast Healing Rain, each ally with your Riptide on them is healed, which I think is pretty much the Aberrus two-piece. First Ascendant, the cooldown of Ascendance is reduced by 60 seconds. Preeminence, your haste is increased by 25% while Ascendance is active, and duration is increased by 3 seconds. Both of these, I believe, also elemental talents now, too. Reactive Warding, when refreshing Earth Shield, your target is healed for each stack they're missing. When refreshing Water Shield, you're refunded mana for each stack of Water Shield missing. New talent Whitewater, your crit heals heal at extra effectiveness. New talent Spouting Spirits, Spirit Link has extra DR. That's nice. That helps make it an even more valuable raid cooldown because it'll make it so people don't get one-shot through it, which is the only way you can die in a Spirit Link Totem is to be one-shot through it, of course. And it restores health to all nearby allies 1 second after it's dropped, and the healing is decreased beyond 5 targets. Very nice. Again, it'll make Link much more powerful in M+ as well to have Spouting Spirits available, as long as it's not in too awkward place to talent it. It's the kind of talent you would forgo in a lot of M+ builds if it's out of the way, if it's not something you want to path through. Okay. Spirit Walker's Tidal Totem's been redesigned. After using Mana Tide, the cast on your next 3 healing surges is reduced by 100%, and their mana cost is reduced by 50%. Cool. Nice little effect. It'll make it even so that you can do, you can use Mana Tide now as part of, a movement thing. Like, if you think about, Razageth wins. Obviously, Razageth wins if you're a shaman. You needed to be doing a bunch to live, but assuming you didn't, right? Or Senarth, knocking back or gripping in type things. Now you can press Mana Tide at the start of that and then also be doing some spot healing of surges while you're doing those movement sections. It kind of gives you a little bit of a... it makes Mana Tide Totem into a mana regen, but also a movement moment. Mash the Elements has been redesigned. Casting Lava Burst increases the healing of your next surge by 30%, stacking up to twice, and it applies Flame Shock to a nearby enemy when empowered by Mash the Elements. I think this is really cool. I think this is a really cool way to give you sort of a hybrid damaging and healing rotation for when the healing isn't too intense. Maybe you just need to heal your tank. Maybe you're doing a pull where mobs are just attacking your tank. Not much else is going on. And so you can just healing surge your tank, lava burst a mob. You go into a pull, you flame shock something, you healing surge your tank, you lava burst a mob because you got a lava surge proc from your flame shock. You get a match the elements. You healing surge your tank again, it applies a new flame shock. That gives you a new lava burst proc. Bang, we're going off. And they don't say here that they've changed Lava Surge, so we don't know if Lava Surge is also going to proc less often, like if it's going to have that reduced scaling on increased targets for Resto like it does for Ellie. That'll be an interesting thing to see, because otherwise maybe you could get a lot of Flame Shocks out with this. Improved Earth Living weapon has been redesigned. Earth Living receives 150% additional benefit from Deep Healing. Healing Surge always triggers Earth Living on its target. Earth Harmony has been redesigned. Earth Shield reduces damage taken by 5%. Its healing is increased up to 150% as its target health decreases. Maximum benefit is reached below 50% health. Downpour has been redesigned. Casting Healing Rain activates Downpour, allowing you to cast Downpour within 6 seconds. Downpour says a burst of water at the target location heals up to 5 injured allies within 12 yards and increases their max HP by 10% for 6 seconds. It's twice as effective for Totemics because Totemics cast Healing Rain less often. Their Healing Rain is replaced by Surging Totem, which is on a longer CD. So you get a bigger downpour out of it, which that's actually really nice because that's going to be a very impactful button for them to get after their Surging Totem. I hope that this replaces your healing rain or your Surging Totem button with downpour as well. I hope that it's not an extra keybind you need, because they could just do that. You would never need to press it again unless you got some weird effect that procced it being castable again, which I don't think usually happens. So yeah, I think they could do that here and again keep the button bloat down. Living Stream's been redesigned. It now increases Totem's healing by 100%, decaying over its duration, so a little bit more front-loaded healing. That'll be a lot more noticeable. I think this was the choice node with Cloudburst Totem. I'm not 100% sure. Lava Surge is now free. You don't have to spend a point on it. +1 talent point. Current Control reduces the cooldown of Healing Tide Totem by 45, was 30. Mana Tide's radius is now 40. Ancestral Awakening now triggers at 20% base chance, increased to 40 on a crit. Torrent now additionally increases Riptide's crit chance by 8 or 15%. Water Totem Mastery now activates on a chance, but its effect has been increased to 3 seconds. Water Shield now has 9 charges, so this would be a little bit less likely to accidentally fall off from Spiteful attacks, but Spiteful attacks are gone, so probably not super relevant. Primwave CDR, Primwave has been reduced to 30-second CD rather than 45 seconds, so that's gotten a lot better. Healing Rain, Acid Rain, and Overflowing Shores are now being changed to 5 target effects from 6, and are having their effects increased. Now, the healing side of this is pure good, pure upside in M+. The Acid Rain change here is a little bit of a nerf if there are 6 targets, right? You're dealing more damage to the 5 targets per target, but 16 times 5 isn't 100. It's a little bit less, so you're losing a little bit of damage if there are 6 or more targets. You're gaining damage if there are 5 or fewer targets, and then you're gaining healing in any M+ situation, unless you want to heal some pets or something. And then some talents have changed and been removed and stuff as well. Please note that we intend to continue tuning and iterating on the changes above throughout the beta, and we also have plans for further updates that will come with a future patch and more within. This is an important line here that is easy to miss, but this does sort of indicate that Shaman is one of the classes that is planning to get a mid-expansion overhaul at some point in War Within. Potentially Enhance would maybe be a good candidate for that if they don't want to add a little bit more cool stuff in the next few beta builds, but I think they really should. I think they should try and come up with at least 1 or 2 cool new things for Enhance so that it feels like that spec gets some new toys as well. Enhance also still has a bunch of 2-pointers in its tree, so adding some new stuff would maybe let them reduce the point costs of a bunch of those things and make the tree feel a little bit fuller and a little bit less mandatory to dump a bunch of your points into a bunch of good 2-pointers. Overall, though, I think this is good news for Shamans in general, for the game in general. It is bad news for the Enhancement raid spot in high-end, content has now become a Shaman raid spot. So if you're an Enhanced Shaman, Ellie and Resto's gain is your loss to some extent. But I do think that this is good. I think Ellie and Resto, certainly it sucked being basically the only class or specs without a big reason to bring them to raid. Dev and Prez are kind of in that spot as well, as long as the meta remains 2 augmentation evokers. Because it's not like Evoker really has a raid buff. It mostly just has tremendous amounts of value in a bunch of different random effects. There's technically a raid buff, that 15% movement spell cooldown reduction, but that's not really the reason you bring evokers. But the problem is the reason that you would bring evokers, you know, rescues, zephyrs, attunements, which only Og can bring, Wernstone, which only Og can bring, but also, you know, spatial paradox or time spiral. You don't usually need multiple of those, and so as long as 2 Og is good, it's going to be tough for Dev and Prez. And then also Death Knights. Death Knights don't really have a raid buff. They have AMZ, which has been buffed throughout the beta, but is still, you know, niche extra raid defensive thing that you don't always need. You know, you wouldn't necessarily be like, oh, we need to make sure we bring a DK for AMZ, right? It's like, oh, we have a DK already. The AMZ is nice. And also grips. Grips are the other reason you'd bring DKs, which are good. Like, you know, Fire Act, for instance, without grips would be a lot harder. So there are fights every so often where grips are incredible. It's often harder fights as well. But still, you know, basically this has fixed, I think, this has been the biggest open wound in the raid buff meta. Raid buffs are in a weird spot. I personally think it would be better if they changed raid buffs in a way of, like, you know, taking an axe to them, bring it down so that the raid buff meta doesn't exist in the way that it currently does. But if, you know, 14 of your raid spots are raid buffs and you're the only class without one, or one of the only classes without one, I think it's better for everybody to have it than almost everybody to have it. I think it's probably better for nobody to have it. I think that's the best. But it's like nobody is better than everybody is better than some people having raid buffs. That's my take on this. So I see this as a step in a good direction, although not the step in the best direction, which would be to delete them all. It would be really funny, though, if next week in the next beta build, they were like, you know what? We've changed our mind. We're getting rid of all raid buffs, like the week after Shaman finally got their raid buff. That would be an incredible timeline, so I do sort of hope that does happen, just because it would be really funny. Anyways, hope you've enjoyed this video. Let me know what you think if you're one of those Shamans out there. Let me know if you're an enhanced Shaman, how you're feeling as well. I'm sure many of you have already posted some choice words for these changes. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you in the next one. Bye.